Welcome to the We Are Change talk show. I thank you for joining me. Today's top story is the catastrophic bushfire emergency here in Australia. There has been a raging inferno all through East Gippsland, the New South Wales coast and many parts of the country. It's been a dreadful start to the new year. The Prime Minister Scott Morrison has been heavily criticised, and rightfully so. Joining us to discuss these matters further is Brendan Thompson. Thanks very much for appearing on the program. Now, these fires are obviously 100% engineered, flammable particles falling to the earth, accelerating this inferno rapidly. What's your take on all of this?
Look, it's the whole scenario, whether it comes from here in Australia or whether it's world around, as we've just come to learn now, South Korean is all under fire as well. It's all premeditated, it's all been planned out, whether it's 60 to 80 years ago, but everything has been pre-planned and followed as it was written. Because there's so much population that's going on and so much, chaos and disorder, people don't even know what's going on. Everything comes to the laser beams over in Los Angeles, right here to the Commonwealth of Australia. It's quite funny how they started burning out certain parts of the bushland where they want to build their railway network. And you're right, when it comes to the chemtrailing and everything else, when you've got the aluminium and all that laying on the ground, and you've also got an even more defined, what do you call it, they use for the pools and all that, like the chlorine.
Yeah.
Well, it's an actual oxidizer. So when it lays on the ground and it seeps in after the rain and all that, then when the government deliberately puts a whole country or nation into drought like they already have, and for so long like they have, light her on fire and watch her all burn down as quick as they can. And that's exactly what's happening.
That's right, it's all done by design. We've got countless lives lost, homes burnt to the ground, the mass death of millions of native fish, animals. It will be extremely difficult for Australia to recover from this, won't it?
That men had put their own diligent war crimes upon the land herself, and we the people. I don't even know how we are going to come back from the wildlife loss like we have had. It's unfortunate people have been killed along the way, and I do believe those whom have lit those fires to be brought to justice and accountability to the full extent of we the people and the real Commonwealth of Australia, not some corporation that is foreignly owned. We the people must start taking back control, because that's what we were founded on in the first place. We the people only, no one else. Only those parliament and that politicianal sectors are only there to hold up what we the people want, not make new laws, not bypass laws or anything of such. No referendum, no law, no existence. We the people are the true power until people start to wake up to reality, which is nature, spirit, mind, body and soul. They would never understand the real truth that lays within this reality. You can walk around with a piece of paper all you like, but you're still asleep if you're not naturally awake.
Absolutely.
Do not want to be backdoored anymore nor any longer.
Exactly, and we're seeing the people take matters into their own hands, fighting these fires, using their own resources. When push comes to shove, that's who steps forward, the Australian people. We cannot rely on a criminal government.
They say, like the firefighters are on the frontline type thing, and it's like when the police say they're on the front line as well when they serve the people. But who are they really serving? Because you're only on the front line when there's only wartime, and it's unfortunate that we have to get Canadian, men and women over here, from their own fire rescues, just like North America that's now coming over. We the people should be entitled to it. Isn't when we're going through, well, it should, we should be calling this a natural disaster, but we know it's not. It is a man-made disaster. And what's it going to take the people to wake up to reality to say, well, hang on, it's all burning down and around, only we, because if the government and parliament uplift and get on the plane and they all abandon us like they always seem to do, like the monarchy in World War II, they all, you know, escaped to Canada. And who was really left there to defend the country? The people. We must defend our country. It is a war crime what is happening right now. That's why they stopped back burning like they did a few years ago, because the elite knew what was yet to come. Because once there's no water, like there is, once there's no water, light her on fire, then use that whatever water we have got left over to fight those fires. And once it's all done, it's going to be so exhausted when it comes to the animal life and nature itself. We are going to have so little water to grow our own vegetables or any food at any mean, and yet the food prices are going to skyrocket. Then you're going to have people turning on each other because they didn't take nothing seriously in the first place. And this is a true divide and conquer.
Exactly. It's all done by design, isn't it?
Yep, that's right. You know, it's like when you watch, you know, The Wizard of Oz, the very famous words, follow the yellow brick road. And what really upsets me is that they so diligently want to vaccinate the younger children now, the newborns, with the amount of vaccinations that they do. But why is it that they are so hell-bent on vaccinating your own animals also? Because I am a true believer, which it has been scientifically proven over and over and over, that we have walked this land many times before. And yet, if you are vaccinated, it disconnects you from the true reality, true state of mind, like state government, because they administrate over your state of wealth, health, and future, you know? So why not, you know, once those vaccinations go into those animals, they are the last animals that have got true natural instincts that lead themselves to safety. And it's like the Wizard of Oz, when the little dog opens up the curtain and you see, you know, the actual wizard that was tricking everybody, which is really Jacob Rothschild.
That's right, they're using every weapon in their power against the public, and it is a war crime. There has been a public backlash against the Prime Minister. He's now forcing people to shake his hand. People are absolutely disgusted, and it was appalling the way he took off to Hawaii. It was as if he was fleeing a crime scene, wasn't it?
Exactly right, mate. You couldn't have said that any better. And not only that, I do believe he was to know what was to come. Why abandon the people in a crisis if you had nothing to do with it? Because you can't face the people. Not only that, it's only people like himself and many others that know what's really going on behind the actual scenes. You know, they're a foreign privately owned corporation. It is no different to McDonald's, KFC, or any other food outlet or shopping mall that you go to. They're all literally using an ABN number, which they shouldn't be anyway, not for a government, or if it's meant to be ours. It's like me creating a government and privately saying, guys, if men and women, if you come and follow me, I'll give you more laws, regulations. It's no different when you sign a new contract for a new job. That's all it is. They shouldn't be where they are today, because so many people are so blindsided, and you've got our, you know, the men and women whom serve for the police force that don't even really know what's going on either. They're thinking that they're doing the right thing. And I do believe there are a lot of good people out there in that aspect that have got a heart of gold, that want to do the right thing and help society, but they don't realise the fundamental issue behind everything why society is the way it is today. Because not only they too have been lied to, stolen from, their children have already been so, as well as their parents and grandparents. Our forefathers had been lied to all along. You know, that's why I'm so grateful that the generation that are starting to wake up to it, considering we know between 1970 and 75, with Whitlam and all his, you know, clowns that were running around selling out the country, you know, and if it wasn't for the FBI to bring him down, as well as the American ex-president Nixon for all the crimes that they were doing, you know, we wouldn't know what was really going on. But it's the people back then that neglected their due diligence to stand up and say, no, we are not taking it. This is not our country, and it shall never be. But we are here where we are today, more blindsided than ever before. But how much power is people going to have and take for themselves to awaken on a natural aspect? Because I see a lot of people floating around with so much truth and power within their hands, but yet the only thing that allows them to be so dormant like they are not spiritually awakened. Because once one is spiritually awakened on a natural aspect, no one can penetrate that true power. No one.
Well said, and it's very calculated and all on a need-to-know basis, very sinister. It falls into depopulation. And for the viewers to get an idea of the scale of this inferno, it's reported an area of 5 million hectares have been burnt, and the government is deliberately depriving people of water. And it appears, once again, it's all a big plan that they've been working on for a very long time, isn't it?
Illuminati cards, when you know, when people come over them and all that, and it's amazing how many times when you see events that happen within our world, and yet you come across certain things that came out years before, like those Illuminati cards. Princess Diana is one of the best things that I could maybe bring up in this aspect. Like, they didn't call her Princess Di for no reason, right? Because she did die. So you would have to be pretty hypocritical not to start linking all the links together and why people were called the way they were. And because so many people are asleep, they don't even know what's coming or going. And instead of taking themselves out into nature first and, like, you know, rid all this crap off, have solitary within nature and give oneself that quality time within themselves to learn who themselves and energy is, all that it is to be seen shall be seen for itself. Because you're on a natural level, and nothing can penetrate what that is. Because once an illusion gets put in front of you, you see through it like you see through glass. And it's the only thing that I do believe on a global event that lacks so many people from getting up and doing something about it. There's only so much I can do personally, apart from, you know, burning a bunch of candles here and there. But that's all I can do, because I've already sacrificed as much as I can, not to hurt another or bring another down, or nor expose another through my past time and timeline, but in the good name and faith that they too can walk away with something seated in their heads and say, hang on, what's really going on, and should I be taking a close look on what's going on today? You know, because if we don't wake up to reality, there is never going to be a reality. Whatever we may fix now in the near future, how are we going to know that our children are going to get the benefit and prosperity when our time has come to go?
That's right, and it's very interesting, those Illuminati cards. It's like clues into their war manual, and that's their game plan, is to move everyone into these smart cities where they're more easily controlled. And that would be your understanding as well? They're trying to zone everyone in?
That's exactly right, because I do believe they're trying to get all those people now, native and others that are living on, that have got themselves out of the grid, and to live in nature, all out of there, all bunched together. And as you said, smart cities, it's like smartphones. I know a lot of people have seen me, I've kind of rambled off a lot of rubbish and all that. It's like, hang on, what's going on there? These smartphones, I like to know what their true IQ is, because when you know you typed a word correctly and you've gone along instead of double checking it, it's altered itself and it's gone back. It's like, what are you talking about? You know? So that's why sometimes I've got to go refix something, because they're not smart. They're teaching you how to be dumb, so their technology becomes more smarter than you, so they know your each and every move in each and every way before you do.
Absolutely. It invades one's privacy. They want to know everyone's move so that they can be tracked and monitored on a daily basis. They don't want anyone moving off-grid and being self-sufficient, stockpiling water, growing their own foods. They want everyone on these genetically modified organisms, the aborted fetal cells. They want to have everyone dumbed down and docile, eating this chemical rubbish that's being fed to everyone. They want everyone in a fluoridated state where they're basically just living in a blur with no sense of reality, fed programming through their television sets. They don't want anyone thinking for themselves, and that's how they want everyone to be controlled and 100% programmed. Now, if anyone tries to make these initiatives and attempts to be self-sufficient, that's when they implement strategies such as these bushfires, burn them out if need be.
It's like when you reflect back on Native Americans when the Brits went over there and first did what they did, especially after they did their peace treaties and everything else, and they next minute the Americans couldn't help themselves because they realised the gold deposits that were there, and they broke the peace treaties, I should say. And not only that, it's when they first went over there, their own people started dying because of the poisons that were added to the water because they didn't want them there. And it's the same thing today. When you go and study back into like the fluoride, it came from stallion that used it on his own population, and it's the same thing that Hitler used on the concentration camps. You know, whether it's FEMA camps we want to call it today, it's still the same thing. It is a concentration camp. This is why I don't like the word school nor education, because every time someone hands their child over to a school, they're actually handing it over to a military organisation that was created from World War II. You know, because it is a concentration camp, one that's without a gas chamber, but you're sending your children off to concentrate about the elites, corporations for their future. So you're not really expanding one's own consciousness nor mind, and all those little dreams you had when you were a little boy and girl should never come true, because if it ever did, you'll have your house raided, they'll steal it for themselves, patent it and patent it, and they'll pump it out for themselves because they don't want anyone smarter than them. And the only thing that I have come to discover out of all my research, one thing the elite do not want people to understand, and that is spirit nor energy, whether it's man-made energy or natural energy. Because if people understood the word energy and frequency, we wouldn't be here where we are today. Health, reality as it is today, it'll be overwritten. And all their textbooks and history books, and history is only his story, because whomever conquers a country comes in and rewrites his story over it, whilst they're stealing everything they can at value to keep it under wraps for themselves for later. And it's the same thing today. You know, they don't want no one smarter than them.
That's exactly right. It's origins of words. You have to break it down. People don't even know the language that they're speaking. And these school systems, they just want everybody to be programmed and brainwashed slaves. They don't want a population of free thinkers, do they, Brendan?
Absolutely not, because if anyone was smarter than them, then that means they have to go into competition. And that's competition that they don't want. Not when everything's been so dandy and freely given to them. The word tax is nothing but a gift. You know, it's only up until just recently, you know, like when you look at a Christmas tree, it looks like a pyramid when it's all set up there. And all those little gifts under there, it's like you handing over the tax department, which is really classed as, you know, like voluntary tax. How many people call that corporation up and says, well, can you define a personal income tax? They can't. And also, well, I want the document so I can get released from it, please. And I have to give it to you. But yet so many people still pay for it, not realising that all those little free gifts that they are giving to that ATO is actually coming back to walk on themselves and their own children. Vaccinations are created out of it, and the chemtrailings are dumped on us because of it. You know?
Exactly. They're using taxpayers' money, and they're using that against the people through all these weapons and the budgets. That's right.
It's like this document here, you know, which is, you know, the Commonwealth of Australia, the United States Security Exchange Commission, you know, the annual report for the Commonwealth of Australia. you know, which is owned by, you know, the Rothschilds eventually. It all may go back to Rome, but the money system is Jacob Rothschild, or the Rothschilds family, you know, and none of these organisations would be there if it wasn't for one or the other. You know,
Exactly.
none of these organisations would be there if it wasn't for one or the other.
They've been manipulating currencies and economic markets for centuries. That's how it's all controlled. They don't want sovereign citizens, people living by their own means, and free men of the land.
Want the individual man or woman to be sovereign, but all corporations on our land is actual sovereign. So when the police officers are, so you're one of them sovereign citizens and all that, well, for one, it's not citizen, we should be civilian. They don't realise that those uniforms that they wear makes them a citizen to a sovereign corporation, and a corporation that's manipulated itself to be pretending it's real, but it's really not. The High Court rulings are there, but yet so many people decline it, ignore it, and walk away from it.
Exactly, and the government's full of psychopathic criminals. We have floodplain harvesting and private dams being built. This is unconscionable. And how anyone could do this to the Australian public, deliberately deprive people of water that is essential for life. How they could do this is completely criminal and very diabolical.
Because with that state birth certificate, that steals your live birth record, which is your real estate, because not many people know under fee simple title, we're under any Commonwealth land or country, we are all born with real land. So that way, and so much land too, so that way we are able to grow our own vegetables, have our own livestock if we want it, and we can be self-efficient. But that's all been stolen from that birth certificate. And if people have their birth certificate, I do advise you to scan the barcode on the back of that state birth certificate. You know, and that will tell you that's not only that is your incorporated name that they've incorporated with you with, that's how they traffic you and make money, because that birth certificate is actually a bond stock. It's an IOU, you know, and that steals your true money, your true wealth, and everything out of the Commonwealth when you should be entitled to being that 1% shareholder of that Commonwealth. It's like all gas, water, and electricity, all prepaid for, but yet they've got third-party companies out there taking more money than it's worth.
That's what's happening. And then there's 43,000 fracking wells, which we've covered on the show before, and you know they require millions of litres of water, and that's where it's all been designated. It's a complete disaster of epic proportions. We have farmers that are committing suicide because their livestock is dying, and the government is responsible for this. It's a clear-cut case of manslaughter, how they could do this to people. They've had these farms for generations and now it's completely being destroyed. The suicide rate is rising and we have the government to blame, don't we?
Nothing less. You know, for one, we shouldn't be calling it a government, because if we do, we must be able to reassure ourselves that we are in control, because it is nothing more than a properly owned de facto corporate government acting as a government. And how they were allowed to get away with it for so long, it is beyond me. But I'm so grateful that it is 2020 and there's major energy shifts happening within our astrology that no one can even fight against. It doesn't matter how much vaccinations they want to pump into the kids or how much fluoride they want to pour in our water. We already know it's a war crime, but it takes the people to wake up to the reality before it's way too late. Because Mother Nature will always have the last say. She's hurting ever so gratefully. She too is unbalanced like society all around. And I don't know if you've noticed certain weather events, especially towards the end of last year, the earthquakes, certain storms that ripped through Sydney, especially in November, you know, Mother Nature's trying to tell the people that she knows what's going on and she doesn't want to be the final answer. Because those who caused harm upon this land and we the people are going to suffer twice as much than anybody else. Because they know what they're doing. And you know what? You know what's even funny? How are they going to reassure themselves that their own children are safe when they are gone? You know, they can't. The money that we're on now is nothing but fake.
That's right. Mother Nature's crying out for help. As you said, the currency, it's just an illusion of value. It's a promissory note. It's not worth anything. Not the paper it's written on. You know, we've seen that through Venezuela, economic breakdowns.
It all comes down to that word UCC, Uniform Commercial Code. You know, they don't have school uniforms for no reason. They don't have military uniforms for no reason, nor police uniforms, and so on and so on, because it's all about uniform. You know, it's like Section 51 of our Common Law of Australian Constitution. There should be none of what's being portrayed onto us now. It's only for international and national, you know, trade only. They should be only paying tax for any of it. But anything else is null and void. You know, anything that this government creates and makes as a gift, they take it. And yet we're all here to ponder, I think the Australian people need to, you know, maybe get together and put in and help. No, you stole the money, use help. Because that's where it's meant to be. But it's not when it's properly owned.
Exactly.
So,
and it is quite promising. There is an awakening happening. People are starting to question certain events, like the chemtrails, for instance. They know that that's really unusual, and it's not a cloud formation. It's very much artificial. And people are starting to put two and two together now. They're like, hang on a minute, there's an abundance of chemtrails, and there's a raging inferno, and they're spraying directly over the top of bushfires. Alarm bells are starting to ring. People are sharing this information over Facebook. People that are a little bit confused by it, they're asking questions, which is a good sign for the future, isn't it, if more people start doing this?
It's all we need is for those people to really take a stand back. And it's unfortunate, as I turned around and stated quite a few weeks ago, what's it going to take for the people to start waking up to reality? Is it going to be a man-made catastrophe or a Mother Nature's event to happen so severe for people to start coming together? But you know what? I don't believe it's Mother Nature that's taken the long shots. Always starts with man-made creation first. It's only so much an energy field could take. And you know what? Scott Morrison gets into a car and takes off because he couldn't handle the people, you know, swearing at him. Well, stiff shit. Because you know what? You are a part of it. You are the problem. Just like anybody else before you, around you, before and after you are the problem. Because as far as Canberra sits in Canberra with that parliament, that's treason and highly unlawful because it became a private corporation.
That's right.
You know? So until people get their dignity back and their morality, this country would never raise for what it's meant to. It's 2019. We should be much, much further off within technology and IQ and intelligence than ever before. It just reminds us being back at World War II, but in a much
Sophisticated way.
Yeah, I can't even say it now.
That's right. It takes a disaster to bring everybody together, doesn't it?
But how much life there has to be lost, and I'm not talking about men or women because we're so grateful that hasn't been a massive amount of loss. But I do believe if no one stands up or starts waking up soon enough, people are going to start declining. You know, we've already lost a whole lot of animal life and wildlife. What's next? People are going to be like, well, no food and water. Who gets sacrificed next? Who dies next? Your own children before your very own eyes, knowingly what has been presented to you all before, but yet you still, she's right, mate, somebody else will pick it up.
That's right.
What one got to go through and lose before they actually wake up to reality and know that they are going to lose everything before they know it. And when they have, it's too late.
And it's sad when you see people asking these criminals for help. Scott Morrison turning his back on people when they demand answers. They're requesting help in this emergency period. they don't want to shake his hand because they're disgusted, and
Absolutely.
their houses have been destroyed, burnt to the ground. They should be compensated. These criminals
Yep.
are the ones that are responsible for it, and you know, they're red-handed. It's blatantly obvious what we're seeing. The chemtrails, some of the ingredients, we have flammable particles such as barium, aluminium,
Yep.
strontium-90, and when it's in the clouds and then it rains, it's dispersed evenly, and then it's still highly flammable when it dries. So that's when you
Absolutely.
can say it's just a raging inferno, and it's
Yep.
100% weather modification doing this. Geoengineering is the root cause of the problem. We have to fix this, the weather modification, first. It's not
Yep.
climate change, it's man-made manipulation. That's the root
Yep.
cause of the problem, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yep, that's right. Everything down to the news, you know. Like I seen one of the things today about how, you know, like how one like little country place and all that, how they're like all swearing up ScoMo. Should be called scammo, really.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, oh, but you know, like, hang on, mate, you're so rich because you put your face on TV, you know, and you got this and you got that. You could probably move here and there and anywhere you want with your family, but until you've lost something and you've lost it all, you've got nothing. You know what I mean? It's like, how can you turn around and say, oh, people should be more dignified within themselves? Well, you know what? You're not in their shoes. And not only that, it's not just the here and now. How many years from childhood life that they had to grow up in pain and misery because their parents couldn't afford this, their parents couldn't do that, their parents couldn't give them what they really wanted, you know, because it was all done by design to destroy the family and deprive each individual on a soulful level. Now it's like they're driving with license, you know, that word driver is someone who gets paid to drive. Now, if we became, when I was traveling back in the past, trying to do my timeline, I had to take on way more responsibility than most people would with a license. Because it's a much more responsibility you've got in your own hand and say, well, okay, this is the real life now, you know, and the last thing I want to do is cause chaos on the road and hurt somebody, and I have to face my peers as a 12, which would never happen because of today's society. You know, I could be punished twice as much, you know, but if it was a blatant accident and if it can be seen as a true accident, no intent and harm or, you know, ill will, then maybe it'd be done differently. But under today's society and system, it's all about money, 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 money. People don't realise how much money they really have because it's already been stolen from that, you know, birth certificate, you know.
You're exactly right. And for the Prime Minister to drive up in his BMW, it's very patronising, where you have the Australian people, they give the shirt off their back to help another person. We've seen that.
Not only that, it's more deplorable and degrading when he turns up with one shopping bag to give to a centre for the people who have lost their homes. That's degrading. Why not send up quite a few truckloads? Not just there, but everywhere. You know, I'm sure you can personally do it out of your own pocket and no money lost, because I know these criminals are so sophisticated. If they brought it, they'll probably wipe it out in tax and get it back in tax. You know what I mean?
Yep, that's what's
It's all
happening.
about greed. Yep, it's all about greed.
It feels like they want to keep pushing to see how much they can get away with before people start snapping, and that's when it feeds back into the prison industrial complex. If they can't drive them out of their own private property, they want to lock them up. That'll be the next step when there's riots that start because people are sick and tired and disgusted with the way they've been treated under the current system.
And I just hope on the fact that when it comes to like the police themselves, and I'm not speaking in such disrespect in any way, but they too have got a question from our forefathers fighting in World War I and II, and what they stand for and do and act as today, because this is not what our forefathers and our own blood died for. They died for what they died for against the tyranny that they do unto other people as well. And, you know, like, it is one of those things that it is hard because an education system goes far and wide, but they only departmentise it so they can only feed out what they only want to feed out. They know one area is very, very onto it. They'll make sure the teaching curriculum is changed to alter the perception and slow them right down. You know, that's why they do data collecting and everything else, because they want to know who's smart enough and who's not smart enough, so they can manipulate the hardest. You know,
yeah,
it's like
exactly
5G.
right. A lot of the
All the radio towers is an actual radio warfare. Everything is a warfare. If they were using natural energy to transmit radio frequencies, whatever, it'll be different, because they're not using a different type of frequency wave to disrupt their own natural frequency. You know?
yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. The soldiers that fought and died in Gallipoli would be turning over in their graves if they knew
Yep.
the same country that they fought to protect has now got a criminal government that's flying planes overhead, spraying poison, using chemicals and more poison in the water. It's an absolute outrage, and the people that lost their lives would be disgusted by it, wouldn't they?
Yep. That's absolutely, you know, and the only thing I could ever wish for and dream for is for all people in certain positions and jobs. You know, I have got a lot of respect for a lot of people in my past, because a lot of people I do know that kind of know something's not right. But when's it going to be a time and point to say, you know what, I'm actually destroying a country more worse than what it should be? Especially those jail systems. You don't come out of there rehabilitated. Not when you've gone in there on drugs and alcohol. No way.
That's right.
Why isn't the proper, you know, steps been taken for you to come out better, you know, more loving and more heightened? There's none of that, because they're going back out into reality that gave you no help anyway, because it's all about your estate. If you can fold and go back under their system, they are accessing your estate and gaining money that you didn't even know you actually had. And that's where it all extends from. People have got money, yet they didn't even know that they had, due to us being all 1% shareholders. You know, that pays for everything, our schools, our roads, the medical, everything. But once you realise how they've converted it all over and how they manipulated it, it's always been under, you know, admiralty law, you know, all war of the ocean. That's
Maritime
what they call
admiralty, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. The UCC. A lot of people don't take that into consideration because we don't really see that to be a big threat here. But hang on, the last time I looked, UCC, who owns the actual Commonwealth Bank of Australia? Not we, the people, like we all believe it is to be, and every other bank. Until people realise what the UCC is about, they'll understand what the Wizard of Oz is all about. They'll understand George Bush and his father and everybody else along the line. It's amazing, because if people knew the real reality in the past, it's like when World War II broke out as well, you know, over 52% of the population were all German descent, and yet they didn't even know it. That's because years have gone by, you know, centuries of, you know, a century or two has gone by, and quite a few decades have gone by. We've got new generations that come in, and if they weren't taught their true origins and where they really came from, but their senses don't lie. So it was like that we're all living in one world and having a massive civil war when it's a World War II. A lot of people don't realise it's like when they hit Pearl Harbor. Japan only hit Pearl Harbor because there was a treaty that was about to run out. And when that cooling period had ran out, they who put their postal services on the land controls the currency, controls the imports and exports, controls the local courts, controls the police, controls it all. You know, and it all starts with the Universal Postal Services, because the Universal Postal Services union is the UN. That was, you know, that they came to life in Bern, Switzerland in 1873, you know.
That's right.
So,
and control of people's finances. It's another way to keep them weak and destabilised. We're seeing it now with the cashless welfare cards being rolled out. they're using debt as the new form of slavery. People,
Well,
yeah, that's right.
that's right, because when a new corporation is created, that is created in bankruptcy. So it was already bankrupt to start off with.
Yep.
And it takes, gullible people like you and me and anybody else to say, oh yeah, we'll go and use that services. And that's how they start to rob the people, and it's no different to the United States of American corporation that used to be the United States Corporation. That transitioned over in 1999. A lot of people don't realise when you go and look on like Don Bradstreet, when it comes to documents like, like the Australian Commonwealth and the United States Security Exchange Commission, why is it all backdated to the year 1999? Because when George Bush Jr. came into power, he wasn't voted to become Prime Minister of the United States. He was appointed. And I'd say every Prime Minister after that was all appointed here also. Because everything that dates back, you can all tell it was all done deliberately and accordingly, and it's been done for so many years, and yet people cannot seem to link the dots up. And until people seem to link it all up or know that there is something majorly terribly wrong, they would never find the truth until they bring it down, And we don't need to be malice or ill will or vengeance. We got the people, and we can stand there, and we've got the voice. Then we can stand and fucking be as one.
Yeah.
Be solid. Be a man and woman. If we can't acknowledge that what we couldn't have as a child, and what our parents couldn't give us, imagine what their future is going to be like when it's their time to have children. Especially when it comes to their children, they get it.
Exactly. We're seeing our financial capacity has been hit hard. We've lost our land. Our water is polluted. We see people wanting to leave the country now because it's just not a viable place to live. How can you raise children, as you said, vaccines, to have a healthy child nowadays? It's an absolute miracle when they're being bombarded under these new vaccination policies. People are being hit on all fronts, and it makes it a very difficult set of circumstances to live by, doesn't it?
It does, because it's like when someone hacks someone's computer. Oh, how'd you get hacked? Oh, I don't know. Someone injected a virus into my email or whatever it is. Get it injected, a virus. When you go and get that vaccination, you're not getting naturally sick from the out in. So therefore, when they vaccinate you, they are bypassing your immune system, like when they hack you to bypass your, internet security or whatever you like to call it. They backdoor you.
That's right.
And people don't like to read fine prints, nor do they like to question individual wording, nor break down words, nor want to second question anything. You look up the word justice, it's got J-U-S-T, just, then you got I-C-E, just ice,
Yeah.
Then it's like government.
That's right.
You got government, then they just put a T on the end.
Yeah, government to control, and governmental to control someone's mind. It's all mind control.
That's right.
You've got to read between the lines.
Why did they have MK Ultra? Because if they could find out how they can penetrate one's like their natural aura and their energy, they've got them. They've got them. That's why they want to microchip you too, because they can send out signals and they can make you go and do something that you would normally wouldn't go and do. It's bad enough how they got all these radio towers all around these schools. If it's not next to schools, it's next to prisons. Because it's all done by design. All done by design. And so what's a natural state and what's not a natural state anymore? And none of it's a natural state unless one can try and put themselves back into being close enough or spend enough time into nature, that ain't make, your soles on your shoes out of rubber for no reason, because they disconnect the actual the currency of the energy flowing from Mother Nature to yourself. And you become disconnected. Even more so.
Not a lot of people are aware of this, and soon we'll see the hospital wards full. They'll be sick from radiation.
my side, and if anyone wanted to try and penetrate or take me, kidnap me or anything, they will unleash a protection that I have done for myself on all means, that energy could spread throughout their family. And you know what? I wouldn't want to allow it to be on myself nor anyone else. And if anyone wants to penetrate or go against my right, then well, what lays on them is not for me to tell them, but it's for their own, you know, their own fucking bringing down for what they have done themselves. Because we've all got to stand back in some time, in some point in life, and say, hang on, why is this happening? Why is that happening? A lot of people probably don't realise why I've gotten as far as I did throughout 2018 when it comes to the right of free travel. But I'm not here on that aspect because I don't want people to think that I've got something in for them, which I don't, because I'm going to love it and respect it for what it is, and I'm here right now. But until that day comes, people got to understand the true meaning of nature and spirit, because we can have so much protection providing we look after ourselves and try and love many around us. And even those that don't like us, we will respect them, but providing that they don't do no ill will upon us or cause us loss, then well, it's all good. And that's all we want, because we can't tell people you have to like me or not. We've all got that right to who we want to like and who not. But providing one don't act in a malice way is what it's about, because you honour yourself and you dignify yourself, you know. But within a society, we've got to start pulling ourselves out of the slums. How many people are sitting around, they've got children, we want the best for our kids, they go and read the back of the food labels because they can't have this food within the packets or whatever it may be, because it might cause them allergies. Well, hang on, why aren't you reading warning labels on the back of a vaccination label?
Exactly right.
You can't neglect one and not neglect another. You've got to question everything, because if you don't question everything, you become a self-sellout, and they sell it to your own children and your family, you know. Because I'd rather go and eat natural food instead of something that's been, you know, modified and all the injections in it, you know, for their preservatives. What preservatives? Because it was already rotting, so you had to, you know, give it preservatives so it stays alive a lot longer.
That's right.
It doesn't do good.
It shows that
food.
the government is an enemy of the people. And
well, the state really classes the people as the enemy of the state because it's a foreign power. So that's why they keep chasing the people. And there's many people there that, you know, you come along and you meet within your timeline, and they admit that they take drugs and all that, and they can't help it too, because if they were allowed to be within themselves, they wouldn't be taking the drugs or the amount of drugs that they have or are, you know, because they've been deprived in the first place. Once you've been deprived, you're looking at all four walls and say, well, what can I do? What can I do? Because you've been your natural right has been taken. And you know what? 99% of the times, most people want to do something, ain't doing anything legitimately wrong. It's just because somebody else believes you're not doing the right thing, so they have to punish you for it.
100% false reports. It covers
a
wide range of problems there that people are facing. But at the moment, this emergency, we're seeing a national crisis, and how they stopped backburning a few years ago, that's a sign of premeditation. They stopped the backburning to prevent anyone trying to stop these fires or slow them down. You could almost say that's premeditated murder. They've took every way they can to ensure that these fires spread rapidly. They've took every measure possible to inflict maximum damage. And that's what we're seeing. They need to be put on trial here at the moment and thoroughly investigated. This is a crime against the people, and humanity needs to wake up and take action, because it already looks like it's too late already.
Well, I do believe it's too late to a certain degree, but if the people were smart enough, we would have a new Nuremberg trial, but not like the one in World War II, where all the so-called politicians took act, because, you know, it's still the same crap happening. They just took out the small warlords and kept the big ones for themselves. You know, we the people must be in control of it this time. you know, because isn't that what the country and our Commonwealth is meant to be? A self-governing country? But yet people don't realise what a self-governing country is because we're under a dictator. We don't know whether to call him a prime minister or a president. We really don't, because we already know that we're under, you know, foreign laws, but we're under a, oh, what do you want to call it? Not a dictator. Oh, I can't even think of the word now, but you know, we're under a dictator, which is, they try, you know what, Scott Morrison, not Scott Morrison, Malcolm Turnbull tries to get us into, republic. That's it, republic. You know, a lot of people don't realise America was founded on to be a republic. So the American government allowed them their guns to give them a reason to war crime onto them as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't realise what was given and what was taken in for the word of war.
All
Because
our
if people
freedoms
realise,
being taken, and you see a lot of people that are real cutthroat and greedy. They're trying to sell water at top dollar, $48 for a mountain Franklin water. They're trying to cash in on people's misery. You see these sharks step into the fray. It's frightening.
it's like water down the dam.
Yeah.
I believe once the UN took over it seems like that we became more and more in this drought, because I do believe those criminals are all bottling up the water and trying to sell it out on the market. You know, people are oblivious to it. And if they can't, it's like Queensland, as well as Northern Territory, they're all releasing that water that should be funneling through our, you know, the Murray River and other rivers. They're all being released back out in the ocean. And if one part is, you know, if they don't want no water to go down the stream even more, they'll block it off, that everywhere else around it starts to flood and die around, because it's not used to having so much flood water there, but it's got nowhere to go, because they don't want anyone else to gain it. And, you know, as you're right, the highest bidder gets to make the water flow. We should be in control of that. It should never have been taken off us in the first place. But as they say, it doesn't benefit these privately owned corporations, so they take it from us and they privatise it.
And now we see China as the highest bidder, buying up all our water and all our land. And people have even speculated, well, since they've taken the water, maybe we should go and try and take it back. But China have declared that an act of terrorism if we were to try and get our own water back. So the level of evil is at an all-time high, isn't it?
Well, because if people woke up, you know, Australian-wide, and they took back the land that China's operating on now, that can be classed as an act of war, and China would more or less likely sail on over here and go to war onto we the people for us taking that land back that should never have been given to them in the first place. And in the Indoctrinated Constitution, it already states no land is to ever be sold to China in any way, shape or form, and you cannot get any more right in your face when it's on black and white. You know, no land or property or assets to be sold to China. Now, isn't that stating something that we may not know from the past? You know, because this war has been under dictation for hundreds, no, I'll retract that, for thousands of years. The UCC dates back to, you know, over 8,000 years. It's only Queen Elizabeth I who kind of rediscovered it and started implementing it again slowly. And it's like Queen Elizabeth I, she actually gave one of the pirates a license so he can go out and lawfully be a pirate and conquer other ships on the ocean. So that way he didn't actually have a title named pirate. It was classed as something else, but he had to be given a license so it can be classed as something else. And yet it all boils down to that word licensing, because if you've got a license, you are being controlled.
That's right.
How many dreams?
Taken all our rights and liberties and sold it back to us, haven't they? Fishing license, driver's license. These are freedoms and liberties that we're all entitled to.
Because if you're homeless or got nowhere to sleep or go or be, permanent, you have to then go out and hunt for your food. But if you're so caught up in that reality, well, I can't hunt this or can't fish that because I need a license, but yet I've got no income, I've got no house. How can I survive? Then once you physically die and they know that you're dead, they'll claim your estate for themselves and they've just made more money than if you were still being alive.
Exactly. We're living in tragic times. It's heartbreaking to see your fellow countrymen and women. They're crying, they're losing everything, they're committing suicide, they're watching their houses burn down, their loved ones perish in flames. It's complete turmoil. We're living in very horrific times and there's no hope on the horizon. All we can do is pray for a miracle in this situation, because we certainly know the government isn't going to jump in and rescue anybody. They're the criminals that are responsible for this tragedy that we're facing.
Well, why would you give back money that you've already stolen? It'll be defeating the purpose, wouldn't it? That's why they come out and call upon other people to see if they can help. But other people know too well that it shouldn't be like that because of the criminals that are already at play. So it's up to the people to realise what's going on and make a stand for it, or otherwise you don't know what you've got until you've lost it. And that meaning too, are you going to bury your own children? And how many children do you have? And how many children are you going to be burying? Because if it ain't you that die first, it may be your very own children, because they may lose a house, they may lose their business, whatever it may be, or whether they grew up in life because of other children and how they got brought up, how they shit on other kids and everything else. Everything is one big organism, and if we don't get it into synchronicity, there is definitely no hope for anybody. The only ones that are going to be standing last and laughing hard and last will be the criminals that created it. But to nature, with spirit, they know what's going on.
That's right.
So,
well, look, I want to thank you for coming on the show. It's been a very powerful broadcast. All we can do is hope that there's a miracle. These fires don't engulf more of the land. It's a very, very difficult time for many. We're living in uncertainty. And you stay safe, won't you, Brendan?
You too, my friend. Take care, brother.
Well, that brings us to an end of another show. If you've been suffering due to the bushfires, don't hesitate to reach out to us here at We Are Change Melbourne. I wish everybody the best. Stay safe, folks, and join us here again on the program where we expose corruption one episode at a time.